Thank you, Mr. Chair, and appreciate your patience in allowing me to come back to ask questions. This is the first of these for the calendar year, and very important. So I didn't want to miss the opportunity to raise some questions, particularly for Mr. Devine. I'll start there. Mr. Devine, in 2011, you wrote a piece for your college newspaper arguing against marriage equality. While you acknowledge that, quote, the gay community cannot be blamed, end quote, for the, quote, weakening, end quote, of marriage, you were worried that marriage equality would, quote, further this trend of traumatic digressions, end quote, against marriage. Now, it's hard to see how this could be interpreted as anything other than you suggesting that LGBT people enjoying the same rights as straight people is somehow harming your conception of the institution of marriage. But like I said, you don't just blame marriage equality, you also blame, quote, easy divorce, cohabitation, increased single parenting rates, and recreational sex, end quote. These are your words. So, Mr. Devine, noting for the record that June is Pride Month and that we are sitting here in Washington, D.C., which is hosting World Pride this year, I have to ask, do you believe in marriage equality?
Senator, thank you for that question. As you mentioned, this was a college writing, 2011. At the time, I expressed the same view that President Obama expressed, that Joe Biden expressed, that Hillary Clinton expressed. Under Canon 5 of the Judicial Ethics, as I'm sure you're aware, and as hundreds of nominees before me have expressed, I cannot tell you what my personal views are today or my political views are today. What I can tell you is that I'm no longer in college. That was almost 15 years ago. I can tell you that as a general matter, I've grown up, I've had a lot more experiences, a lot of my policy and political and even some of my religious views have changed in those in that time. But I can't tell you specifically any specific policy or political issue.
So then let's jump to today, and can you answer this question? Can you tell me the legal status of marriage equality according to the Supreme Court?
Yes, 10 years ago this month, the Obergefell decision was decided. I understand also maybe 3 years ago, this Congress passed some legislation. And obviously, Obergefell is a binding decision of the Supreme Court. As a lower court judge, I would be bound by that decision, just like every other decision of the Supreme Court and also the Eighth Circuit.
So if you're fortunate enough to be confirmed, you would uphold that Supreme Court precedent?
That's correct.
Thank you for that. Now, being selected to serve as one of our nation's federal judges is one of the greatest honors that we can bestow on any person. It's also one of the greatest responsibilities. So, Mr. Devine, I'd like to ask, how many years of litigation experience do you have?
Did you say how many years of litigation?
Correct.
About a decade.
About a decade. Can you be a little bit more precise? I know you know your resume pretty good.
So it depends if you consider, I was chief counsel in the Senate, I was deputy counsel in the Senate. We also did some amicus briefs during that time, which would be considered litigation. I obviously wasn't doing litigation all the time during that period, but if you include that period of time, I think it's about 9 years.
Does that include clerkship time?
Yes.
Okay, so without clerkship time, it would be less.
That's correct. It would be 7 years. Although,
and I think it's important for this committee to consider that, because while President Trump has decided to throw out the American Bar Association's nonpartisan rating system, I know that the American Bar Association does have a threshold for litigation experience for any nominee to receive a qualified rating, and you seem to fall short of that. So, again, something for this committee to consider, I would hope. Lastly, we're about 5 months into President Trump's second term, and we've already seen numerous attempts by the president and even some of my colleagues in Congress to attack and undermine the judicial branch, all for the crime of issuing rulings, pausing or striking down the president's illegal and unconstitutional actions. I was concerned to hear earlier in the first panel of this hearing, Ms. Hernandorfer's unwillingness, I should say, to tell Senator Kennedy that the executive branch must follow court orders. So again, Mr. Devine, I ask you, if you're lucky enough to be confirmed and you author an opinion for the Sixth Circuit in which the executive branch or one of its officers is a party, and you decide against the executive branch or one of its officers, would you believe they are bound by that decision?
So, Senator, point of clarification, I haven't been nominated to the Sixth Circuit. So, but taking your question with respect to the district courts in Missouri, I mentioned to Ranking Member Durbin earlier that there's a well-established doctrine on this. The answer is almost always yes, with some exceptions for if there's lack of jurisdiction, if there's impossibility, things of that nature.
So my apology for the confusion. Ms. Hernendorfer is the one that was nominated for the Sixth Circuit, not you. But just expand for a moment. I know my time is up on what those exceptions would be. I understand there's some exceptions, but some people in this day and age, the political climate that we're living in, seem to be really broadening the categories of, or what qualifies for an exception, very different than what we've seen historically.
Yes, Senator. One of those exceptions, the first of the three that I just mentioned to you, is if a court lacks jurisdiction. The Supreme Court has been very clear that an order issued without jurisdiction is void ab initio. It's as if it never happened. And so for there to be a circumstance where, a judge or a litigant was accusing somebody of violating an order and the district court was later determined to lack jurisdiction at the outset, then there would have been no order to violate in the first place.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
We'll be submitting additional questions for the record.
Absolutely. And on that note, questions for the record may be submitted